Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to this panel session titled Sustainable Agriculture, Pakistan's Path to Food Security. The fragile world is tipping towards mass hunger, and fixing it is everyone's business. And today we are going to deliberate upon the nexus of sustainable agriculture and the pathway for Pakistan, and what role the public sector, private sector, and especially the financial industry can play in this regard. And it is extremely important how we define this intersection for Pakistan and what this metrics can offer for maximum positive outcomes. So our discussion is going to be focused around how can the private sector, financial industry, and public sector fortify against climate challenges, what strategies can ensure the agricultural sector long-term sustainability, and also how might the government formulate a robust working model to propagate strategies that can actually produce the output.
Firstly, I am thankful to SDPI and Bank of Punjab to arrange this policy forum, sustainable agriculture related to the food security. Sustainable agriculture has the unique potential to mitigate the climatic change. Agriculturists, stakeholders, industrialists, researchers, all together, we work hand to hand and solve this problem related to economic, social, and environmental challenges.
We know that we have to move away from flood irrigation towards drip irrigation. We know that we have to move away from these seeds which are all now polluted towards new seed technology which can fight climate change, जो drought resistance हो, जो climate resistant हो, उसमें investment की हमें ज़रूरत है. And we also know that हमारी जो ज़मीन की प्रोडक्टिविटी है उसको बढ़ाने के लिए, जिस तरह ज़फ़र साहब ने बताया, फर्टिलाइज़र्स की जो इनपुट है, गलत ज़्यादा फर्टिलाइज़र जानने से भी आपकी क्रॉप कम हो जाती है. उसके लिए आपको स्मार्ट टेक्नोलॉजी चाहिए जो मौजूद हैं इस वक्त, जो आपको बता सके फार्मर लेवल पे, मौसम का अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम्स बता सके फार्मर को कि क्या होने वाला है, ताकि वो अपने आप को एडजस्ट कर सके.
Study for agriculture, but in order to enable our farmers to adopt digitalization of agriculture, which is the strategy for coping against climate change. My fourth one is credit to farmers, and Zafar Masud perhaps didn't elaborate much, but Bank of Punjab is doing a lot in providing credit to farmers.
Have a mechanism for doing the satellite data analysis and doing on a commercial level, not on a theoretical level, and also doing the crop cuts to find out if the crop yield has gone down enough for you to actually make a payment to the farmer, insurance payout to the farmer. Therefore, they said the calamity declaration by government is going to be the trigger. And I think you don't have to be an expert in insurance to know declaration of calamity has many subjective issues that come in. So that is one issue. Now we have not only fintechs but insurtechs out there, and that's already, some of them have come to Pakistan from the Pakistan Agriculture Coalition platform. We've brought them. The pilots have been done, and I think Dr. Abid Suleri was right that Zafar Masud Saab has been very humble in talking about the Bank of Punjab's initiatives. And they've paid the premium on behalf of the farmer to test this out. And there have been payouts in their pilots because of the heat wave last year for wheat, and also the Sutlej overflow, which nobody expected that, and also for whitefly, etc., for cotton. So this insurance is available.
I would like to call upon Mr. Zafar Masud, President, Bank of Punjab, for a technical presentation. Sir, please.
Thank you very much, SDPI. Thank you very much, Dr. Suleri. It's an absolute honor and privilege for me to be part of this illustrious panel. Agriculture and climate, both are technical, complex, diverse subjects. One can't consider him or herself to be an expert on the subject, especially with luminaries of agriculture and climate around you, like we have today in this discourse. Given the expertise on the stage, I would like to try and contribute to the dialogue on how finance and economics, which I know relatively better, can assist in achieving sustainable agriculture and eventually food security, of course. Since climate and agriculture are bosom buddies, so both these topics will be covered interchangeably and synonymously by me during my talk, and you may have to excuse me for confusing you on this at times. Let me start with a few facts on the topic. There are many facts about the topic, but I've confined myself to 5 only. There has been a twisted narrative which has been built over a period of last 2-3 decades, and mainly, to the benefit of service sector, which I'm also part of, and also for extending fiscal concessions to the industry, that, the contribution of agriculture directly is merely, 23%-ish. We have done a research at Bank of Punjab, jointly with the PIDE, and we came out with and Planning Commission, and we came out with the conclusion, which Kazim Saab also quoted in his article, that, the direct and indirect contribution of agriculture is 45% towards the economy, and this is based on the backward and forward linkages that has been devised by ADB between agriculture and the other sectors. The second one, the potential of this sector, enormous potential, starting from crops, where there is a real potential for import indigenization and enhancing exports. Both put together has a delta of around $15 billion on your current account. If we got our policies right, we can actually correct this situation very well. Second one is aquaculture. Pakistan has a coastline of 1,046 kilometers, and we barely export any fish. Current annual exports are close to $500 million, which has been stagnating since 2017. The potential, however, is over $2 billion to economy exports as per the BOP and SDPI joint research on blue economy. Meat exports, contribution towards exports is merely $350 million, whereas it's estimated to have a potential of over $10 billion if you do the investments right and in a committed fashion for the next 5 years. Fruits and vegetables has less than $500 million of exports, and it's mainly wasted because of the lack of supply chain infrastructure and the branding. The export potential could be another $5 billion, if not more. Number 3, the third fact. The sector is a victim of 4 levels of inflation. Now, in this case, it is different from the others, and I'll tell you why. Number 1, the first sort of inflation is the imported inflation. Directly and indirectly, through their inputs, including energy, it is the victim of this imported inflation. We talked about $15 billion there on the export and the import side as well. Demand pull, given the fact that it's of essential nature, irrespective of where the prices go, the demand remains pretty much stubborn. And therefore, the demand inflation is also very much there. The third form of inflation is greedflation, most relevant in our case perhaps. The greed for the wholesalers and retailers in the environment of increasing prices and inflationary pressures make things even more complicated for consumers and help in wholesalers to get away with demanding their greed margin in prices too. And last form of inflation is shrinkflation, where the consumers get less for what its value for money in packed foods as the quantity is reduced by the seller to keep their profit margins intact. The fourth fact, food insecurity and human development. Direct impact on livelihood, nourishment, gender participation are directly related to economic security of the country. Alarmingly, 36.9% of the households in Pakistan labeled as food insecure, within which 18.3% are in severe food insecurity, according to the Ministry of Health and UNICEF's National Nutritional Survey of 2018. Slightly lagged, but nevertheless, that was the latest number available. I'm pretty sure that that situation would have worsened now. And I tell you why. Well, first of all, it's the population dynamics. You all know the population dynamics, so I'm not going to get into that, but just to quote you, Pakistan's population growth is 2.55%, as opposed to the global average of 1.12%. Sustainable agriculture in Pakistan is intrinsically linked to livelihoods. Small holder farmers, 63% are below 5 acres of land, constituting a significant portion of the population. Approximately 67% of the rural women are attached to it, confront resource constraints and heightened vulnerability to climate change. Food wastage is another area of worry. Globally, nearly 30% of agriculture land is used to produce food that ends up lost or wasted, as highlighted by the United Nations' latest report. This number would be even bigger, I would assume, in Pakistan, given our eating habits and food storage dynamics. Last fact, but perhaps the most important one. Subsidies grossly mishandled in this sector. Let me make a statement which you might have never heard before. Agriculture, and under the garb of agriculture, let me repeat this, under the garb of agriculture, cumulatively, agriculture is probably the second biggest beneficiary and the second highest amount of subsidy extended by the government to it every year, after energy. Directly or indirectly, implicit or explicit in cash, from fertilizer sector indirectly to commodities directly, from electricity and gas directly and indirectly to concessional financing directly. There are many pockets from where this sector gets the support, and rightly so. I personally am a big supporter of extending subsidies to this sector in line with the global trend. However, in case of Pakistan, this subsidy is grossly mischanneled, and the real impact of them is getting lost in translation, as they say it. As per the PIDE report for 2021, subsidy to fertilizer sector alone for the benefit of agriculture came out to be 200 billion rupees a year. The commodities, the stock of debt there, circular debt in commodities, currently stand at 1 trillion rupees at the provincial and the federal government level. Similar is the case with the subsidies extended to this sector or under the garb to this sector. But the benefit of these subsidies are surely not evident in the productivity results. In fact, if anything, productivity results having been struggling. Therefore, one could safely conclude that the subsidies to agriculture sector are grossly mismanaged, and rather than acting as productivity enhancer, they are acting as productivity distractors, as they, for example, are encouraging to use more fertilizer than it's required, thus destroying our soil quality and the climate at the same time. And on the other hand, end up using substandard seeds, directly impacting our productivity. I'm constrained for time, otherwise I would have explained to you. In fact, I have put an example here too of Ireland, where, because of the excessive use of fertilizer, how the quality of land was destroyed, which is, by the way, happened in our case also, and it's simultaneously impacting the climate change challenges as well. Let's turn to possible actions which will help us achieving sustainable agriculture and food security. All our actions shall be with the sole objective of lifting our productivity levels, and that also in many folds. Suggested actions broadly are, there are 4 of them. First, solutions should be homegrown and tailor-made. Agriculture and so as climate are most dynamic of all the sectors. They are more unknown and uncharted territories than any other sector possible. The environment and conditions varies literally at each piece of land, depending on how big or small they are, irrespective of their proximity with each other, at each season, at type of cultivation or nature of business, at plantation cycle, etc., 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 they are different from each other. In climate change and decarbonization, as in education, health, healthcare, and provision of electric power, the problems are general, but the solutions are always local. What works in one place doesn't work the same way at all in another. That holds true, by the way, in our case, generally speaking also, when we talk about our economic policies. Innovations at the forefront have to be adapted and sometimes transformed to suit the peculiarities of the place in point. And because place-specific conditions are constantly changing, local adaptation rarely comes to an end. This ongoing adaptation of innovation to the economic, social, and political circumstances of a particular place contextualized, as very rightly said by Sable and Victor in their book, Fixing the Climate. This is the starting point for finding any effective and efficient, specific, tailor-made solution to the problems at hand at both macro as well as micro level in this sector. Second solution to the problem, solutions should be all-inclusive and fully encompassing. Given the fact that sector is all interlinked, as I talked about climate as well, and the other subsectors too. Sustainability of climate and agriculture needs 360-degree inclusivity and collaboration, starting from government's direct intervention to giving leeway to private sector to create markets, to provincial and federal government to recognition of role and contribution of middlemen Aarti. Very unusual, but Kazim Saab will bear me on this. I think they are very much part and parcel of the equation, and we can't just totally ignore them. Research institution, academia, advisors and experts, all are essential to achieve a breakthrough in the sustainable agriculture. Collaborative and cooperative effort is the name of the game. Furthermore, human development needs to become a major driver of policy making in the food security context. Each subsector, livestock, farming, aquaculture, require specific attention and policies for nurturing of this sector and contribution to the overall economy. The third solution, control food wastage. Something very much in our control. इसके फौरन बाद हमारा अभी lunch break है, तो ज़रा please को याद रखिएगा, शायद वहाँ थोड़ा सा काम आ जाए. Efforts to control wastage, food wastage, can be practical and actionable through the establishment of community-level storage facilities and distribution networks coupled with educational campaigns to promote responsible consumer behavior. This approach ensures that the food produced reaches its intended consumers, reducing wastage and enhancing overall food security through the use of technology as in UK and EU. However, it's important to recognize that while science can make strides, changing human behavior remains a challenge. We need a similar campaign within our societies and communities too desperately. And I'm starting it from today with this address. Last but not the least, and the most important perhaps, and my favorite by the way, is the review and fixing of subsidies. Subsidies transmission. We need an immediate attention to fix this flaw, moving basically away overall from trickle-down to bottom-up approach in the transmission of subsidies. Targeted subsidies using NSCR scorecard is the name of the game. And that also based on using quality inputs, time-bound and performance-driven to make the whole subsidy offering agile and effective. With this paradigm shift in subsidy allocation, agriculture by default becomes the biggest beneficiary as the most poor and vulnerable are attached to this sector, whether it's agriculture or aquaculture, or it has one of the biggest potential for import indigenization and exports enhancement, including livestock and fish, as I had mentioned earlier. The subsidies shall be aimed at providing advice to the farmers and then following through on the right amounts and qualities of chemicals and inputs, particularly seed in case of crops and dietary in case of livestock. And the aim of achieving the best productivity from each and every farm to the maximum extent possible. The concessional financing facilities and insurance offering at the provincial and the federal levels must be revisited and restructured in consultation with the stakeholders to make more effective and efficient than the way it's being currently offered or packaged. Budget allocation towards R&D is an absolute must for better seed production and other inputs like liquid chemical injection through drip irrigation based on biogas production, for example. At the end, let me conclude by saying that climate and to a very extent agriculture and its various branches are by and large a socialist agenda. Let me just repeat it. हम बड़े obsessed हैं with the capitalist ideas and thoughts. मेरा ज़रा थोड़ा सा मामला टेढ़ा है. मेरा मामला ये है कि मुझे कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता ये कैपिटलिस्ट हो या सोशलिस्ट हो. जो मेरे मुल्क के लिए अच्छा है, जो मेरे लोगों के लिए अच्छा है, वो solution होना चाहिए. I don't care whether that's socialist or capitalist. But climate, Minister Saab is here, climate cannot take off. Professor Saab is there as well. ये सारे expert बैठे हुए हैं agriculture के यहाँ पर. That cannot take off if you do not take it as a socialist agenda. Whether we like, and this is not just true for us. This is a global reality. And let's attune ourselves to it. And it becomes even more important for a country like ours, where, which is not developed enough to carry things through on their own accord, merely leaving them on the market dynamics. It's directly connected with people and nations' welfare, agriculture and climate, not only at a national level, but also at an international level, in comparison to perhaps any other sector. I will urge you to please read the book of Piketty, Time for Socialism, in which he's argued this point, in detail. Therefore, the government support and subsidies shall remain an integral part of achieving better productivity and overall economic good. The government shall not shy away for supporting blatantly and shamelessly, but in a smart and targeted fashion through a private-public partnership framework. Let me emphasize, private-public partnership framework, while it has to be supported by the government, while there has to be a socialist agenda aspect there, but the government doesn't have the capacity to execute things. Therefore, it is important that the private-public partnership framework is put in place, and then we take these benefits forward to achieve much-needed sustainable agriculture and food security going into the future. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.